Hey guys, Dr. Shook here. What I want to talk to you guys about in this video is I want to go through some of the steps on how I prioritize working up cases when I'm working with someone either distance or in the office. So let's talk about labs primarily. Okay, so the first thing that I do is, when I'm looking at labs, is that I'm going to order and I'm going to look at typically an expanded metabolic panel, which is a very expanded panel. It covers lots of physiology. We cast a very wide and broad net so that we can look at a lot of things at one time and see if there's dysfunction of the various systems of the body. And that gives us more insight into what might be driving your problems and causing your symptoms. It can also give us an idea of where we might want to go next with any advanced testing. So the first thing that I do is I want to look at inflammatory markers. So typically I'm going to be looking at like C-reactive protein, homocysteine, and I'm going to be looking for any autoimmunity. Because as a byproduct of autoimmunity, there's typically an increase in these immune system chemical messengers that can be inflammatory called cytokines. So we're looking at cytokines, C-reactive protein, and homocysteine typically. That's what I'm assessing at priority number one. And I'm looking at those because I want to see if there's inflammation present. If there's inflammation present, then I know that inflammation as a whole wreaks havoc on multiple systems of the body. The endocrine system, the nervous system, the immune system. Inflammation can wreak havoc on everything, on lots of different systems, digestive function. It just creates numerous problems. So we want to know if there's inflammation present. We want to understand why. Why is there inflammation present? And if we understand why, then we can try to formulate a plan to work on lowering the inflammatory levels and therefore improving multiple systems of the body at one time. Okay, so that's step one, and that's a big one that's often not checked and looked right over. Okay, so that's like my super priority, like the first thing. Number two is going to be anemia. So I'm going to look next for anemia. So I'm going to look at are the red blood cells normal or not? Are they ideal? Is there a shift in the red blood cells towards an anemic state? Now, anemia is where your red blood cells cannot carry oxygen to the cells of your body efficiently. That's a really big deal. That's a huge problem because you're literally suffocating from the inside, and if you're anemic, okay, and you can't get oxygen to the cells. And if you can't get oxygen to the cells, and because every single cell in the body requires oxygen, what kind of problems do you think can develop with anemia? Well, anything. Any problem, because anemia will cause every single cell of the body to not be able to function optimally or efficiently. And if that occurs, then you can have dysfunction of the cell. And what do cells make up when they're in groups? Cells, when they're together, make tissues. And what happens when you take tissues and you combine tissues? You make organs. And what happens when you take organs and you connect them? You make systems. And what happens when you connect systems all together? You make you, right? So you cannot have dysfunction at the level of the cell, or you can have dysfunction at with anything throughout the rest of the body. So we look next for anemia. Okay, once we get past anemia, then we look at dysglycemia or blood sugar issues. So I look at dysglycemia next because I'm looking for serum glucose, so fasting blood sugar, and their hemoglobin A1C, which is about a 3-month measure of blood sugar fluctuations. When we do that, the reason we do that is because what does every cell have to function? It has to have oxygen and it has to have glucose, which is your blood sugar. If your blood sugar is high or low, you're going to have problems with cellular function. And what do the cells make? Cells make tissues. What do tissues make? Tissues make organs. What do organs make? Organs make systems. What do the systems make? They make you. So again, back at the level of the cell, what does a cell have to have? Oxygen, number one. Number two, blood sugar. If you skip those things and you go into something like, oh, there's hormonal problems, maybe we need to give you some hormones. Okay, maybe. Well, what's the blood sugar like? If you skip over blood sugar and you jump straight into hormones, you don't understand physiology. You're not looking at the chemistry completely, okay? Because blood sugar fluctuations, and especially hypoglycemic events. So listen, if you have diabetes, you're going to have you have drops in blood sugar. If you're diabetic, you have spikes in blood sugar. Listen, hypoglycemia in particular is easier to illustrate here. Drops in blood sugar will cause the brain to stimulate the production of your stress hormone cortisol, because when you're hypoglycemic and the blood sugar is low, the brain cannot continue to drive and function and maintain the functions of the body. The brain has to have blood sugar to do that. So when your blood sugar drops and you have these crashes in blood sugar, the brain is going to say, wait a minute, I need blood sugar to keep running the systems of the body. So what it does is it tells the adrenal glands that sit on top of your kidneys to make cortisol. Cortisol, when it rises, it stimulates the release of stored blood sugar, which is stored away in your liver and in your skeletal muscle. It stimulates the release of that into the bloodstream. When that gets into the bloodstream, the blood sugar comes up and the brain says, okay, there's blood sugar, now I need to get that blood sugar into the cells of the body. So how does your brain do that? It spikes insulin. Insulin levels rise, and what's the job of insulin? It's to shunt and push the blood sugar into the cells so that the cells can combine, so that they can the blood sugar and your oxygen can be utilized to manufacture and make energy. Okay, so remember, and your brain has to have that because it has to run the functions, the systems of the body. So it will make cortisol to help bring blood sugar up. And guess what happens as a result of that? If you're constantly driving the production of cortisol, you will deplete the body of pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is a steroid hormone that is required. It is a shared hormone that is required to make cortisol. And so if you're making cortisol all the time, you're going to be taking all that pregnenolone and making cortisol. Guess what else pregnenolone is required to make? It's required to make progesterone, and it's required to make your testosterone and your estrogen. So if you have problems with your hormones, or you have problems transitioning into menopause, what's your blood sugar like? Okay, what is your blood sugar like? Are you having hypoglycemic events? Are you robbing your body of pregnenolone? If you are, you're going to have problems with your sex hormones. You're not going to transition well from your ovaries making a lot of these hormones into your adrenal glands supporting the manufacturing of a lot of these hormones. And you're going to have a really rough time. And taking a hormone replacement could be very dangerous for you. It could be. I mean, taking these estrogens and some of these hormones, they can convert into some very dangerous forms that can be associated with tissue proliferation and growth, cancers. I mean, why do you need hormones, right? It's just matching, just because you have a low level doesn't answer the whole story. It doesn't tell you the whole story. Why do you need a hormone? If it's because of blood sugar, then you need to fix your blood sugar. And if your blood sugar's off, then you need to say, well, why is my blood sugar off? And if you tell me that I eat perfectly and I look at your diet and you're eating really, really well, you're eating frequently, then I'm going to look at inflammation. And I'm going to look at inflammation because inflammation makes every cell in your body less sensitive to all hormones, including insulin. So it could be you could have some problems there. If you're autoimmune, could you have autoimmunity and have like GAD65 antibodies? GAD65 is an enzyme in the pancreas, also in the brain. And if your immune system's attacking it and destroying it, then could you have a problem with the release of insulin? You could. Could that be throwing off your blood sugar? It could. Could that be causing problems with your adrenal gland function? It could. Could that be causing your hormonal problems? It could. Does it make sense to take a lot of crap that you don't need? Figure out, work through the chemistry, try to understand what's happening to you. Instead of, turning your care over and not being an active participant. The whole reason I'm recording all these videos is because I'm trying to educate people and encourage them to be more involved in their care. There's so much information now. You can learn a tremendous amount about what's going on with you and literally walk into your doctor's office and have a pretty good understanding of what's happening. And, be an active participant in your healthcare. Not an adversary to your doctor. Doctors are trying to help you out. They are overwhelmed. Believe me, it's overwhelming. There are a lot of sick people, and there's a lot of pressures and stresses that when you're trying to help people come into play. And so don't be an adversary at all. Try not to be a know-it-all. Doesn't work either. Just try to be a partner, and try to be in a relationship where you can talk and have mutual respect. And, an understanding that your doctor may not know everything that you're talking about, and that you may not know everything that they're talking about, but that you can have a conversation and say, I think this, and you're willing to work together to try to better understand each other and help you get better. Okay, so that's my soapbox. But the main thing here is talking about blood sugar. man, it's important. It's very, very important that you balance blood sugar. It promotes autoimmunity, creates lots and lots and lots of issues. So I just want to let you know, it's a big, big problem. There are something like all the children born, after 2000, the year 2000, I think there was a research study that said after 2000, the year 2000, they were expecting of Caucasian children, 1 in 3 to be diabetic. And the rates went up to like 1 in 2 if they're African American or if they're Hispanic. With diabetes, kids, it's unbelievable. But it's like the average American consumes something like 200 pounds of sugar per year. There's a great documentary that I think I posted a link to on our Facebook business page, and it's on what's it called? Anyway, it's all about sugar. It's about the sugar industry. It's about how sugar, when they did like functional MRIs of the brain, they show that's where they look at like metabolic activity of the brain, that when they do that with people that eat sugar, it triggers the same addiction centers as cocaine. The brain, if you put up a brain scan, it looks exactly the same as when someone's consuming sugar as cocaine. It is unbelievable. It is addictive. It wreaks havoc on our bodies. When people say that they think sugar should be a controlled substance, I kind of agree with them on it. I think it's just crazy how addictive. So, here's an interesting thing. Like when I think about sugar and I think about all these foods, people are like, okay, well, what do you typically have people start with? Well, I typically have them start with their diet and changing their diet. So basically like whole foods, right? Meats, vegetables, minimal, not no fruit, but not the tropical fruits typically because they spike blood sugar, and water. Cut out stimulants, cut out sugar, cut out grains a lot of times, cut out dairy. And people are like, well, what do you eat? Well, there's tons of great, amazing foods to eat in those things that I just said. The problem is people try to get off of it. Like, I feel horrible. There's no way this can be. That I don't feel good. I don't feel good. I've got to eat these foods. Like their body's telling them their body's telling them that they need those foods. Let me tell you what your body's telling you. Typically, the first 3 days, what you'll see happening is that your body is telling you that it's addicted to those foods. And when you withdraw from sugar, you have withdrawal symptoms. When you stop eating gluten, that could be creating an opiate-like compound called gluteomorphine. And when you stop consuming dairy, which can create an opiate-like compound called casomorphine for casein. When you're doing these things, and then when you're withdrawing from caffeine, which is an adrenal stimulant that can run down your adrenals, mess up your blood sugar, mess up your hormones, what you're doing is you're getting off of these addictive substances, so you're having withdrawal and you feel like crap. So it is reasonable that you're not going to feel great. And so that's why we try to come up with some strategies like using adrenal adaptogens, making sure that you do it maybe on a weekend at a time when you can rest more. There's things that you need to do, but you got to be aware. Yeah, it's not all rainbows and unicorns when you're first starting and getting off of some of these foods. It kind of sucks sometimes, and I get it. But you've got to realize that these things are not good for you and for a lot of people. So when you withdraw from them, they literally have physically addictive properties. So they can create some withdrawal, all right? But it's not forever, and if it lasts a long time, then that's probably not what's occurring. But you shouldn't necessarily feel bad when you go on these diets for a long period of time. But for the first few days, it's reasonable when you consider the addictive capacity and properties that a lot of these foods have. So anyway, just wanted to ramble some this morning with you guys, I guess, right? We got on blood sugar, and I always tend to digress somehow into another topic, but that's somehow relevant. But when you start talking about these issues, everything's relevant. Everything's connected. Blood sugar's connected to autoimmunity. Anemia is connected to poor health and to a lot of these dysfunction. Inflammation's connected to all these issues, and digestive problems and brain problems. And the brain and gut are connected. And hormones and blood sugar are connected. And blood sugar and neurotransmitters and brain chemicals are connected. I mean, everything works together in the body. So that's why you have to look at people as a whole person if you truly want to be better. If you truly want to try to have good health and not just cover up symptoms, then you have to be a grown-up and you have to say, look, I'm willing and I'm willing to look at my diet and make changes. I'm willing to give up